Hi, my name is Will Thornton and welcome to my video on the different subgenres of suspense. The suspense genre has been along for a very long time. Some of the very earliest examples of this would be Alfred Hitchcock's The Lodger, which is a story of Jack the Ripper during his prime days in London. Then you've also got Fritz Lang's interpretation of Safety Last, which was once a comic book but then got iterated into a film about a man who was tightroping on a skyscraper. Modern-day interpretations of the film genre include films such as Train to Busan and also World War Z. Those two films are from the zombie subgenre of suspense, which in fact is one of the most popular forms of it, but there are also many other iterations of subgenres, including things such as haunted houses, ghosts, devils, hell, and demons, and also giant monsters. Today we'll be taking a dive into three separate subgenres of suspense, which will include devils, demon, and hell, undead zombies, and giant monsters. Today we'll begin with the zombie subgenre. This subgenre often includes things such as gore, horror, but also sometimes comedy. Our first example will be Zombieland. Zombieland debuted in the late 2000s and is often hailed as a great standard for comedy in the zombie subgenre. Zombieland has an incredible cast, with actors such as Woody Harrelson, Jesse Eisenberg, and Emma Stone. It even includes a cameo from Bill Murray. The plot of this movie is the actor's path to surviving the zombie apocalypse. Now, they don't end up ending the apocalypse, but it shows their journey from point A to point B very well. Columbus is the character we're first introduced to as we begin the movie, and it goes through his rule book to survive the zombie apocalypse. He then meets Woody Harrelson's character, Tallahassee, and they don't get along too well at first, but eventually it comes around when Woody's love for Twinkies is shown. Later in the film, we're introduced to Emma Stone's character, Wichita. Wichita is shown at first to be sort of malicious along with her kid sister, but as the film goes on, we see the characters grow closer and closer and closer until it's like a family. The next film we have is called Train to Busan, and this is a Korean film which actually has been hailed as one of the greatest zombie movies, horror movies, and just movies of all time. If you can get over reading the subtitles for a little bit, you'll be in for a real treat when you watch Train to Busan. It's a grotesque showing of the zombie genre, and it shows things from gore to the character's grit to survive from end to end. Train to Busan is a story of a man who, him and his daughter, get trapped upon a speeding train during a zombie apocalypse. And this is, of course, not a very good thing, as you know, zombies can be on the train with you, and where are you going to go on a speeding train? Not off it. The conclusion of the film is pretty heartwarming. As the train slows down near a blocked-off tunnel, there are military snipers aimed in at the family. But as the daughter begins to sing a song, they realize that they're not zombies after all, and the snipers actually help the family to safety behind the blockage tunnel. And that concludes the film on a very touching note. The next genre to be covered will be the demons, devil, and hell genre. This genre is actually very interesting because there are many iterations across many different platforms of entertainment. One of my personal favorites is called Doom Eternal. Doom Eternal is a video game from the Doom franchise, which has been around for many, many years, as it was one of the very first video games. In Doom Eternal, you're portrayed as the Doom Slayer, which is an ex-Marine who is now fighting through hell, defeating demons and gods to rid the world of the demonic overtake. It's a very fun experience, and one thing I find quite hilarious about it was created by a Mormon, and the Mormon's exact quote is, "If anything, it's a good thing to be killing demons." As you hack and shoot your way through this video game, you'll often find yourself having immense amounts of fun. Now, the next example of a demonic film would be called The Nun. The Nun is a film by Gary Dauberman. It is a showing of the corruption in a certain Catholic church in olden times. In the beginning of the film, it shows a young nun who gets trapped and overtaken and cursed. Now, as the film fast forwards in time, you see a group travel to this church, but as they're there, they encounter this nun, and the nun, of course, doesn't really have very good intentions, and, of course, as most of these types of films go, tries to kill them. The demon begins to possess people left and right, and it causes a huge havoc in the end of the film. But of course, as all stories go, the end was somewhat of a happy ending. Although, yes, people did get injured, seriously injured, everyone turned out okay. The final subgenre is actually my favorite subgenre. This subgenre is the giant monsters subgenre. Giant monsters have been around forever, with the Leviathan, the Behemoth, things such as those have been around since Bible times. Now, the first example of the giant monster subgenre would be personally my favorite, with Godzilla. The story of Godzilla originated back in Tokyo, Japan, where there was a story of a giant lizard dinosaur-type creature coming out of the ground and destroying Tokyo. Now, this story is very well known because it's the original Godzilla story. Godzilla has had many film interpretations along the many years he's been around. Until not too recently, about probably 2 decades ago, Godzilla was never CGI, of course. He was always played by a man in a suit. It kind of looked pretty clunky and stupid at times, if you ask me. Some monsters that go alongside Godzilla are King Ghidorah and Mothra. The most recent film adaptation of Godzilla is called Godzilla King of Monsters, and this is a film where the world is being destroyed by many types of kaiju, with King Ghidorah being the main one. But the world finds its only hope in Godzilla, which they actually resurrect from his long slumber to come and save the world, which they just have to let him rampage to do. Godzilla is considered an ally of the human race in this film, and is actually very important to their survival. Godzilla destroys King Ghidorah by the conclusion of the film, and by doing that becomes the new king of the monsters, as the title of the film entails. However, this is not the final film in the franchise, which I'm actually quite excited about. I'm excited to see the new films of Godzilla coming up into theaters as time progresses. The next example of the giant monsters subgenre would be the Cloverfield monster. This monster, not much is known about it. To the beginning of the film, you don't see anything of it, and it's just strange occurrences in the world just being utterly destroyed. Now, near the end of the film, you see this giant bat-like creature, but it doesn't have wings. Instead, it just has massive claws that it climbs over all the buildings and just destroys everything in its path. In the film, the government tries to cover up all these strange occurrences as natural disasters, but everyone knows that's not true. Now, the Cloverfield series actually has 2 other interpretations, neither of which really include giant monsters. The second film in this franchise is called 10 Cloverfield Lane, and this film actually is more like a horror suspense type movie with 3 people being trapped in a house, and one of them goes insane and tries to kill the other 2 while the other 2 have to escape. Now, this is rambling on a little bit away from my subgenre, but it is hinted at that there are more creatures outside of the house, and they can't escape because they would be killed if they did. The third film in this franchise actually dropped as a surprise on Netflix 2 years ago, where it was debuted directly after the Super Bowl, with no one knowing it was coming except for a trailer during the Super Bowl. This third film actually takes place in space, where this group of scientists are trying to do something up there to supply infinite energy with a photon ray that would blast the Earth and supply infinite energy for everyone. But this actually awakens the Cloverfield monster and shows how the Cloverfield monsters got to the Earth, and then it ends up setting up how the film will progress into the next one and the next one and the next one, if it needs to do that. That is my video on the subgenres of suspense. Thank you for watching. Please check out my website if you'd like more information. My name is Will Thornton. I'll see you later. Bye.